And now, once you dry your eyes, find your way to Ephesians chapter 5, verses 1 to 14. Therefore, be imitators of God as beloved children, and walk in love as Christ loved us and gave himself up for us as a fragrant offering and sacrifice to God. But sexual immorality and all impurity or covetousness must not even be named among you, as is proper among saints. Let there be no filthiness or foolish talk, nor crude joking, which are out of place, but instead let there be thanksgiving. For you may be sure of this, that everyone who is sexually immoral or impure, or who is covetous, that is, an adulterer, has no inheritance in the kingdom of Christ and God. Let no one deceive you with empty words, for because of these things the wrath of God comes upon the sons of disobedience. Therefore, do not become partners with them. For at one time you were darkness, but now you are light in the Lord. Walk as children of light, for the fruit of light is found in all that is good and right and true. And try to discern what is pleasing to the Lord. Take no part in the unfruitful works of darkness, but instead expose them. For it is shameful even to speak of things that they do in secret. But when anything is exposed by the light, it becomes visible. For anything that becomes visible is light. Therefore it says, "Awake, O sleeper, and arise from the dead, and Christ will shine on you."
I want to begin today by asking this simple question, which maybe isn't so simple, but is an important one, and that is this. What is Christianity? If you were to have to summarize it in a very brief way, maybe even in a sentence, what would you say Christianity is? Over the years, I've heard a number of ways people summarize it. One is this. Some people say Christianity is about following rules and rituals. And if you obey well, if you do a good enough job, you'll be rewarded. And if you don't, you'll be judged. And that's what Christianity really is all about. Others say Christianity is really ultimately all about serving other people. The golden rule, do unto others as you would want them to do to you. That is the heart of Christianity. Still others, more on a skeptical note and thinking that Christianity isn't really valuable at all, would say that Christianity is really just a way to control people through guilt and through fear. That Christianity is just a power play. It's a way to manipulate people and to use guilt and fear to keep them under your control and in your power. And that's especially spoken of those who are in authorities positions within a church. And still others would say Christianity at its heart is really about saying a prayer and getting forgiveness. It's about saying a prayer and knowing that you're forgiven and that you have been saved. And as I think about all those different things, and maybe as you contemplate what I've been describing, and maybe you have different variations of those, I would like to say again, what is Christianity? Because while there's elements within each of those that may be true, and some of them sadly are true because of what people have done with Christianity or in the name of Christianity, none of those are truly at the heart of Christianity. See, because at the heart of Christianity is what we celebrate at Easter. At the heart of Christianity, in one sense, you could answer with one single word, and that is Jesus. And let me describe it to you this way with the words of Charles Haddon Spurgeon, a pastor from many years ago. And he said this: "Salvation may be described as the blind receiving sight, the deaf receiving hearing, the dead receiving life. But we have not only received these blessings, we have received Christ Jesus himself. It is true that he gave us life from the dead. He gave us pardon of sin. He gave us imputed righteousness. These are all precious things. But we are not content with them. We have received Christ himself. The Son of God has been poured into us, and we have received him and appropriated him. What a heart full Jesus must be, for heaven itself cannot contain him." You see, what Spurgeon's saying is, Yes, putting your faith and trust in Jesus, you can be forgiven. Yes, you can have his perfect life credited to you, imputed righteousness. You can have all these wonderful things, but if you don't have Jesus, if Jesus isn't the center of your understanding of Christianity, then you really don't have Christianity yet at all. All those things can be kept at a distance. All those things can be turned into things you know, and that you can even know about, but not really experience and live out of. You need Jesus, and Jesus has to be at the heart of who Christianity is really talking about and who and what Christianity is in your life. And Easter makes this abundantly clear. At the heart of Christianity is Easter. At the heart of Christianity is Jesus and all that he has done in Good Friday and in Easter Sunday. This is what we celebrate, and this is what I'm hoping today to do with you. To walk through passages like this one, Ephesians 5, 1-14, and to show you from this passage 3 big things that teach us about who Jesus really is. And that our goal today would be to see Jesus in all of who he is in these 3 big ways the passage is talking about. And here are the 3. 1, we'll see that Jesus is true love. 2, that Jesus is true power. And 3, that Jesus is true light. Okay? That Jesus is true love, true power, and true light. And in seeing him in this way, we will see the heart of Christianity and see the wonder of what it means to know him, to be loved by him, and to actually experience knowing him in perfect, intimate relationship. And let's jump in then with this. Jesus is true love, number 1. The beginning of our passage, Paul talks about love here, and I think it asks us this question: what is true love? If we're going to say Jesus is true love, we should define what true love is. And we begin with true love, I think, explained this way, because our world talks about love in all kinds of ways, and I think true love, real deep love, is this. When someone truly loves you, they see you. They don't just see part of you. They don't see the good parts of you only. They see all of you, every part, the good, the bad, and the ugly. They see to the bottom of who you are and still love you. And even more so, I would say that true love, when we really think about someone seeing you to the bottom like that, that true love would be that this person would also be willing, even seeing all of who you are, that person be willing to suffer for you, to stick with you no matter what the circumstances. That when you're going through the hardest times, that person is with you, doesn't leave you, doesn't forsake you. And that even more so, a person who really truly loves you would be somebody who would actually even be willing to go so far as to sacrifice himself for you. Someone willing to give himself completely to you, even at the cost of his own life. That the true love that we long for, the true love that we know we desperately need, is the true love that comes from somebody who sees every part of who we are, who suffers for us, who willingly gives his life for us, who willingly sacrifices himself for us, even though we didn't deserve it, we didn't earn it, there's nothing in us that makes us worthy of it. That he sees us in all of those ways and still pursues us in love, gives himself up for us, suffers for us, and dies for us. This is Jesus. No one else does that. I don't care how good a marriage you have, or how good a friendship you have, or how good a relationship you have with somebody else. There is no human being on earth besides Jesus, nobody else who can love you this way. And that is the true love that we celebrate at Easter. This is the true love that Paul is talking about here in verses 1-4. This is why he can say, be imitators of God as beloved children and walk in love as Christ loved us and gave himself up for us, a fragrant offering and sacrifice to God. That's why Paul says it. Because he knows Jesus is the only one who is able and willing to love us this way, this much, with an unending, undying, unstoppable love, that nothing can stop him from pursuing you in love. You can't wish him away. You can't will him away. You can't get rid of him by how you behave. That he actually keeps pursuing you in love, seeing just how bad we can be, how messed up our lives are. And he doesn't stop. He doesn't turn away. He doesn't say, I've had enough of you. He pursues you in love. That is the true love that we have in this passage the sacrificial love of Jesus, the only one who can love you with this kind of true love. But Jesus is not just the true love, but Jesus is also true power. You say, well, what do I mean? Well, Easter shows us that Jesus has true power to love us the way that I've just described. And he proves it in what he does with his power. Because in verses 5 and 6 in our passage here, Jesus is described as the one who can give an inheritance, that when you belong to him, not only are you forgiven, not only are you loved this way, but he actually says that you will have an inheritance in his kingdom, which means that Jesus is the king. That the true Jesus, if you meet the real Jesus, you will meet him not as only the true love, but also true power, because he is the true king. And as the true king, he has ultimate power and ultimate authority. And as the king in charge of this universe, the one who gave life to you, the one who gave life to me, the one who has given life to this entire universe, that King Jesus is the one who has every right to do what's described in here for people who reject him and who turn from him. He has every right to condemn them and to bring the wrath of God on them. That is his right as the king. And he would be justified in doing so. The evidence would be overwhelmingly in favor of Jesus saying, you are condemned, to any single one of us, me included. Left to our own accounts, left to our own record, looking at our life according to even what we say we should do, Jesus has enough evidence that we would deserve the wrath of God. And that he would be having every right as the king to bring that wrath upon us. We looked at that in the last week or so. But here is the incredible good news of Easter. That even though Jesus has the power and the right to do that, Jesus chooses to use his power to die for his enemies. You know, we don't like to hear about power in our day and age. We don't like this idea of someone having a lot of power. Why? Because so often people in positions of power misuse their power. I mean, we have a pretty well-known saying. It says, power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. Why do we say that? Because throughout history, every single person who's ever been in a position of authority, and as they got more and more power and authority, even though they might have started off well, might have started off meaning well, they might have started off serving the people, revolting for the sake of the people, that every single one of those people has turned into a tyrant. And the power has corrupted them. And so we're skeptical. Maybe you are, and I understand that. You're skeptical of anybody who has power because you're afraid and you see how that power has corrupted every single person it's touched. You see how it's changed them. But Jesus, the Jesus we meet here in our passage, the Jesus of Easter, the Jesus of Christianity, is the only person in all of history who had every right using his power and authority to condemn us. Instead, he comes and dies for his enemies. He humbles himself, it says, even to death on a cross. Jesus, the King, hangs on a cross. And he stays there because he knows the very people who are calling out, crucify him, are the people who desperately need his salvation, his saving grace, his mercy, and his forgiveness. You see, Jesus is the only one in history who has ultimate power, but used that power to save his enemies, to die for those who don't deserve his love, but he gives it to them because he loves them. That is true power. That is Jesus. True power, true love. And you say, well, how do I know that Jesus has this kind of power? How do I know for sure that he has the power to save like that, to save his enemies, to rescue his enemies, to forgive them? How do I know that's true? And that's Easter. We celebrate today that Jesus didn't just die on a cross. He didn't just suffer as the king who suffered, but he is the risen and reigning king. In other words, the reason we know Jesus has the power to save people completely, that he has the power to love them and to bring them new life and to raise them up and to forgive them, is because Jesus conquered the grave. That Jesus is the one who's been raised to new life, body and soul. That when the disciples and his followers met Jesus, they didn't meet a ghost. They met a flesh and blood risen Jesus with a resurrected body. He ate food in front of them. He broke bread with them and gave it to them. He let them touch him. He touched them. Jesus is the alive, reigning, and ruling king in all power, and he showed his power over death, and in proving his power over death, he proves he has the power to not only give you new life, but to raise you up with him, to unite you to himself, and to take you from being simply a person who's forgiven to somebody who's united to Jesus by faith, given new life in him, a new inheritance, a new family, a new belonging, a new eternity ahead of you. Because he promises a resurrected body like his when he comes again. That Jesus willingly uses his power in all these ways because he loves you and proves his power is for good, the good of our lives as we trust in him. But Jesus is not only the true love and the true power, he is also the true light. We see that in our passage here, the light and darkness over and over again, and Jesus ultimately is the true light. And you say, well, what does that mean? Well, our passage basically says that when you meet the real Jesus, then you will have Jesus, the true light, affect your life in two big ways. There's other ways, but these are the two that are highlighted in our passage that I want to highlight with you today. Two things happen when you meet Jesus, the true light. Number one, verse 13 says, when you meet Jesus, the true light, it says, anything exposed by the light becomes visible. What does that mean? Well, one of the things that Jesus does is he comes as a true light and he exposes the darkness in our lives. I know this is a hard truth. I know this is something the world doesn't want to hear. I know it's often something that people in church don't want to hear, something I don't like to hear. But here's the truth. Jesus, the true light, one of the things he does as a true light is he exposes the darkness of our lives. Jesus sees everything. He knows it all. You can't hide from him. And when you meet Jesus, when you really meet him, okay? When you come in a sense face to face with the real Jesus, his light does this. It exposes you. It exposes me. But the desire of Jesus in exposing you and a desire of exposing the darkness of your life, the desire of Jesus in exposing these things in our lives, making them visible, is so that it'll actually drive us to him. You see, we have a choice when he begins to expose us, when he begins to expose the realities of our life. We can run from it. We can try to hide from it. We can try to excuse it. We can try to ignore it. Those don't work, by the way. Or we can actually be driven to him. Because Jesus, the true light, is also the true love and the true power. Jesus is the one who exposes the darkness in your life because he loves you, because he wants you to be driven to him so that you can find in him freedom from the darkness, freedom from the guilt, freedom from the shame. And that freedom comes through his grace and his mercy and his love. But his light, Jesus the light, does expose the darkness to drive you to him. Second, Jesus the light comes, and verse 14 says that he will shine on you. That Jesus the light is not just there, he's not just there to expose the darkness, but he's also to shine on you. You say, well, what do you mean? Well, thankfully, we're at a place today where the snow is melting. I see it before my very eyes, melting away. Because one of the ways that you can think about Jesus shining on you is to stand out in the full sunshine on a clear blue day. And as you close your eyes and you experience the sun shining on you, you feel the warmth of that sun on your face and on your body. You feel the warmth that it gives you, in a sense, the feeling of it being wrapped around you. And then as you open your eyes, you see the world around you begin to spring into life as new life grows, as the sun warms the darkness of the earth. You see, that's what Jesus does in a person's life as the true light. He shines on you and warms you and helps you understand his loving embrace. And not only does he do that, but he, through his light and through the sunshine of his life, in one sense, that he brings new life and growth in you. That Jesus isn't content to leave you as you are, but he wants to change and to shape you and to make you into something beautiful. And Jesus shines on you so that that will happen in your life. And Jesus shines on you even to such an extent that we're told that Jesus, by his Spirit, comes not only to shine on you, but to shine in you and to shine through you by sending his Spirit to live in your heart and your life. That the amazing truth of Jesus is the light is that you become a light for him when you trust in him, because he sends his Spirit, and his light doesn't only shine on you, but his light begins to shine in you, and then it shines through you to the world around you, so that when people see you, if you are a follower of Jesus, having put your faith, your trust in him, that they would begin to see Jesus the light in you. That when your life begins to look more like Jesus, that people won't necessarily see you, but they'll see him. They'll see him in the way that you are growing in your love. They'll see him in the way that you are growing in how you use the power you have to bless and to serve others, not to take. And they will see your love when you shine out as a light for the world to see, not so that people can see you, but so they can see Jesus. This is the Jesus of Easter. True love, true power, true light. No one else like him. The one we worship, the one we delight in, the one we rejoice to serve, to follow, to obey, to love. And so I ask this question to finish off today. Do you know this Jesus? Do you know him? Maybe you're here and you're listening and you don't really know him yet like this. Then I would say, hear these words of Jesus in the book of Revelation. He says, I stand at the door and I knock. And anyone who opens the door and welcomes me in, I go in and I eat with him. See, what Jesus is saying is he's calling out to you today that this would be the day that you would turn to him and trust in him. That this Easter would be the Easter that you come to see just how great Jesus' love, power, and light are, and that you would begin a new life with him, experiencing the joy and the freedom of his forgiving love. Maybe you're here and you're saying, I know Jesus, I do know him, I've put my faith and trust in him, but honestly, he feels distant if I'm really honest about it. He seems far off to me right now. And I would say to you that maybe it's time for you to do some important meditating on who Jesus is, in the sense that Jesus is the King whose true love and true power and true light means that he needs to be the number one person in your life. And that often when Jesus is distant in our lives, one of the reasons, not the only reason, but one of the reasons is because Jesus has made it to number 2, 3, 4, or 5 in the list of most important people or things in our lives. And Jesus doesn't belong anywhere but number 1. It's only when he is the most important person, the person who gets our best time, our best energy, our resources, all of who we are, when he is number 1, then his true love, his true power, and his true light are transformative. And that's only when that happens, because when he drops to become 3rd, 4th, 5th, or lower, then what happens is all the other things that you've put ahead of him become the things that we worship, that we adore, that we chase after, and that we look to for our meaning and our satisfaction in our life. It's the things that we long for, and it's the things that will leave us empty, unsatisfied, unfulfilled. Only Jesus can fulfill and sustain and give us the life we long for. And that only happens when he is the one we worship and adore, the number 1 person in our lives. And so maybe today is a day to reflect and to consider what is getting in the way. Who has taken the place of Jesus? What is more important to Jesus in your life? Last, some of you know Jesus. But if you're really honest about it, you feel weary, weighed down. You feel exhausted. It might be hard circumstances have happened. You've suffered a lot. You are suffering. It might be sickness. It might be broken relationships. It might be heartache of one kind or another, but you feel tired and worn out. And Jesus comes to you today, true love, true power, true light, and he says to you, come to me, all you who are weary, and I will give you rest. That Jesus is the one that you can pour your heart out to. That in the midst of the weariness and the pain and the suffering, you can say, Jesus, this is where I'm at. And you can pour your heart out to him because he listens and he cares. No one else like him. And he knows. Because if anybody in this world could ever say to you, I know what it's like to suffer, it's him. No one else comes close to knowing the heartache of your life. And so to you who are weary, Jesus says, come to me and find your rest in him. I conclude today with this prayer, a prayer of St. Patrick, a prayer that reminds us of just how amazing Jesus is in every part of our lives, the true love, the true power, and the true light. And here's this prayer I'll conclude with. Christ be with me, Christ within me, Christ behind me, Christ before me, Christ beside me, Christ to comfort and restore me, Christ in hearts of all that love me, Christ in mouth of friend and stranger. Amen. Father, we thank you. We thank you that we can celebrate this Easter Jesus, the true love, true power, and true light, who is with us no matter what. And Father, I pray for those who have not yet put their faith and trust in Jesus, that this would be a day that they would turn to Jesus and find in him the longing of their hearts satisfied. Father, for those of us who are distant from you right now, that in your grace and in your mercy, you would expose the things in our lives that are getting in the way, and we would be ruthlessly cutting those things out, recognizing that without you, there is no life. Father, give us the courage in your love shown to us in Jesus to submit to you, to fall before you, to worship you. And Father, for those of us who are weary and weighed down, I pray that you would, in your grace and your mercy, show us that you are the one who gives rest in Jesus. And that rest in Jesus is more beautiful, more precious, and more soul satisfying than any rest we could find in anything or even anyone else in this world. Father, I pray, help us to meet Jesus, to know your Son, and to see his true love, his true power, and his true light. Open our eyes, give us ears to hear, and hearts to believe. In Jesus' name, amen. Well, each week we do take a few moments to do a Q&A. If you have a question, feel free to ask. If you want to text and you know the number for up here, feel free to do that. If you are online and you want to use the live chat or the comment section, we'll try to keep an eye on that as well. But who has a question today? All right. Well, if you do have a question and you're not sure how to formulate it, or you want to ask and do that later on, feel free to do that as well. I will try my best to answer that. I do have a text that just came in, so I'll try to answer this one. It says, some Christian groups are very extreme about the Holy Week and especially Good Friday. They wear black, fast all day, and participate in extreme rituals. What is the Protestant view of this matter? How do you celebrate Good Friday and the Holy Week? It's a great question. It's a very important thing. Yes, there are some groups of people who do this. They mourn, they wear black. Yes, it's all true. How do we do that? How do I do that? How does the church here at New City do that? Protestants? I don't know if I can speak for all Protestants, but I can speak for New City and kind of the feel that we have, and that's this. I think it's really important to understand the suffering and death of Jesus. I think it's very important to understand just how deeply Jesus suffered and how devastating it was, what he went through. And we should never make light of that or ignore it. But I think we should always celebrate Good Friday on this side of it in light of Easter. In other words, I don't need to wear black, or I don't need to beat myself up if that means it's an attempt to pay for something that Jesus has already paid for. And I think that's the danger, is that sometimes we get to a place where if I could just feel sorry enough, if I could just fast enough, if I could just feel bad enough on a Good Friday, then I would be worthy of Jesus' love. And that is not the gospel, if that's what people are believing. Because the gospel says Jesus sees me in all of my sinfulness and all of my ugliness and all of the ways I don't measure up, and pursues me in love, dies for me, rises for me, unites me to himself by faith, and brings me to new life. He does it all. And when he says on the cross, "It is finished," he means it. That there's no payment for sin left for you or for me to pay. He has paid it all. And what our response needs to be is to put our faith and our trust in what Jesus has done. Put our faith and our trust in his finished work. And so we celebrate Good Friday in recognizing the depth of his suffering and what he was willing to do, always in light of Easter. And we celebrate Easter remembering what it cost and what led to him rising from the dead. That Good Friday and Easter are held together because both of them together tell us the complete story of just how great Jesus' love for us is.